What are the main takeaways for Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule next season?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we are going over Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule for next season. It isn't complete, but there are still some takeaways that I would like to share with you guys. I think it's a great opportunity. I think they still need to add some cupcakes on the schedule, and my overall thoughts on the non-conference schedule for next season. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So when I look at Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule for next season, the first thing that I think of is that this is a great opportunity for the Orange next season. They're going to be playing some of the better teams in the country before they get into ACC competition. And that's a good thing, because if you have a really weak non-conference schedule, that could be held against you, even if you're going to blow teams out. So before I get to that, though, let's talk about what the schedule actually is. So they are going to have a game against Albany, but the date hasn't been announced yet for that one. They're going to play Colgate at home on November 12th. From November 21st to 22nd, they got the Legends Classic. It's neutral site at the Barclays Center. They're going to be playing two of Texas, Texas Tech, and St. Joseph's. So they're going to be playing two of those teams. November 27th, they got Cornell at home. December 3rd, they are at Tennessee for the ACC SEC Challenge. December 14th, they got Georgetown. They still suck. And December 21st, they got Maryland, which is a neutral site, also at the Barclays Center. And they still need to add, I believe, 3 more non-conference games to the schedule. But like I said, this is a great opportunity for the Orange. Playing in the Legends Classic, you are going to be playing against one of Texas or Texas Tech. You might even play both, because if you win that first game, you might have to play the other one. Who knows, right? ESPN has Texas just outside of the top 25 in their rankings. I know it's early. It's super early to do rankings right now. But at the same time, you're starting to see what the rosters are going to shake out like for next season. So even though it's early and games haven't been played yet, the rosters really aren't going to change between now and the start of the season. So Texas is like just outside the top 25. And you got Texas Tech that's inside the top 25. They are number 23 to be exact. They added guys like JT Toppin and Elijah Hawkins. Those are 2 4-star transfers, both of which I wanted Syracuse to go after. Elijah Hawkins maybe made a little bit more sense, but JT Toppin was the better of the two. And they also retained 4 of their top 7 scorers from last season for a team that was in the NCAA tournament last year as a 6th seed, I believe. So Texas Tech, very strong, and Texas is not a slouch either. So they're going to be playing 2 of those. A great opportunity for Syracuse to kind of get a signature win before ACC play starts. Now, at Tennessee, that's going to be really challenging. They're number 13 right now when I looked in the ESPN top 25, number 13. Hopefully the result is better than what it was last season. I know you guys might push back on that and say, well, they kept it close last year against Tennessee. Here's what I'll say. I agree. Syracuse fought hard against Tennessee last season, and even though they lost by 17 points, it was certainly a lot closer than 17 points. Syracuse built a big lead early on. Tennessee chipped away at it. They had the lead for the majority of the second half, and Tennessee made a run to make it a 17-point game in the end. At the same time, even if you keep it close for 35, 36 minutes of a game, it doesn't matter if the final score is by 17 points. That's not how the net rankings are calculated. A lot of it is due to margin of defeat, margin of victory. So they're just going to look at the 17 points that you lost by. Not saying that I agree with the system entirely, but that's how the system is, and you have to work your way around it. Everyone is dealing with the same advantages and disadvantages of the system. You have to separate these teams somehow, especially the ones that are on the bubble. They like to use the net. Margin of defeat is counted upon it. I don't know what to tell you. So even though it was close, they ended up losing by 17. Hopefully it's a little bit closer this season, but it being a true road game and not a neutral site like it was last year, they played in the Maui Invitational. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but it's a great opportunity. Great opportunity for Syracuse to get a signature road victory. They haven't done that in a very long time. I believe the last time Syracuse won a ranked game on the road, 2019 against Virginia, I want to say. I think that's when it was. 2019 against Virginia, I think, was the last time Syracuse won not a non-conference, won a top 25 game on the road. So Tennessee looking like that'll be their next opportunity to get one. And by the way, the reason why these teams are allowed to play in back-to-back seasons is because they played in the Maui Invitational last year. So this is now the ACC SEC Challenge. It's a tough draw that Syracuse got Tennessee, but that's why they're playing in back-to-back years, because they're two separate challenges, tournaments, whatever you want to call them. So we're playing Tennessee again. They lost Dalton Knect, who is one of the best players in the country last season. They also lost their center, Jonas Adu, but at the same time, they reloaded. They got Chaz Lanier, one of the 10 best transfers in the portal this past offseason. They also got Darlinstone Dubar, a player that Syracuse had reached out to, who I really wanted them to get. They got Darlinstone Dubar. So Tennessee should still be really good next season. Great opportunity for Syracuse to get a signature road victory, perhaps. They also got Georgetown on there. They still suck. They added in a guy like Malik Mack, and I think they'll be better than what they've been the past few seasons. So won't sleep on Georgetown. But at the same time, it's not the most difficult game, I think, on the schedule. They also have Maryland. They were left just outside of the top 25, just like Texas. That's a neutral site game. They added in a guy like Jacoby Gillespie from Belmont. They also got a 5-star center prospect in Derek Queen. He's ranked, I believe, 2 spots lower than Donnie Freeman in the ESPN 100, and he's a center, so it should be a battle between those two. Maryland's not a slouch. Maryland, Georgetown, no slouches. You might have to play Texas and or Texas Tech. Tennessee on the road. This is a great opportunity for Syracuse basketball. I don't think it's an overwhelming non-conference schedule, but it's certainly not easy. So I don't see many people criticizing it for being not good. I don't see it, right? I don't think people are going to be like, well, Syracuse had an easy non-con when they're trying to decide who gets in and who gets out for the NCAA tournament. If Syracuse can win, I believe, two games out of there, you can beat one of Texas or Texas Tech, that'd be great. If you can keep it close against Tennessee, that would be great. You beat Georgetown, you beat Maryland. I think that would be a successful non-conference part right there. Now, coming up, there's still some more that needs to be added to the non-conference schedule, and I think Syracuse needs to add some cupcakes to it. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn is a tool that I use all the time to find the latest job opportunities. But LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's show, we're going over Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule for next season. I told you guys how it's a great opportunity playing teams like Tennessee on the road, Maryland in a neutral site, Texas and or Texas Tech neutral site. Georgetown should be better next season. They still suck, though. So I said how it should be a solid opportunity for Syracuse. Now, they still need to add more to the schedule. I believe they have 28 games on their schedule for next season, so three more non-conference games. Because Syracuse is already playing formidable competition, in my opinion, in the non-con, they need to start adding some cupcakes. What do I mean by a cupcake? I mean teams that Syracuse should beat. Not just beat, but beat pretty good. Like win by 15 plus. That's what you need to add at this point. It should be a blend between teams that are good, that are going to present a challenge for your team, and teams that it's going to be a glorified practice. I'm sorry that I'm being so blunt, but that's just how it is. And I know their upsets happen, and Syracuse has struggled against the Bryants of the world and the Colgates, and they've been losing to those teams. They went to an overtime game to Buffalo a few years ago. I understand that just because on paper you should crush a team doesn't mean that you are going to, but they should still add a team that, yeah, they should probably beat pretty good, right? So when I look at it, oh, by the way, make sure that it's Division I, not like Chaminade last year, which was, I know it was the Maui Invitational, and it was based on how the bracket ended up. But yeah, Chaminade doesn't count. You need it actually to be Division I teams. Those count towards the net. Chaminade did not count towards the net, which is why a 50-point win didn't matter, right? So they already have Albany on there, and they have Cornell and Colgate. They should be able to beat those teams, but they have struggled in the past. Schools to consider adding. These are just schools that they've played in the last few years. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but you got Niagara, Canisius, Lehigh, Bryant. You can add in Lemoyne too if you want to play them. They're local. Any one of those teams I would consider in the final three slots in the non-conference schedule. That's what I would be looking at. That caliber of a team. The last thing Syracuse needs to do is just add in another great team, right? They're playing at Tennessee. They're playing Maryland. They're already playing in the Legends Classic. You don't need another super duper tough team in there. You don't need another team that it could go either way. You need some cupcakes on there. Put schools on there that aren't going to necessarily give you a lot of trouble next season. As I mentioned, a good non-conference schedule is a mix. It's a hybrid. You want to make sure you have your bank in wins. You want to make sure you have games that the committee will look at and say, yeah, that was good. You didn't just rely on your conference. And I know the ACC gets a lot of hate. I know they get a lot of hate. Right? They're not like the Big 12 nowadays. Not saying that I think that the ACC is worse than the Big 12, But in terms of a national perspective, a lot of people think the ACC or the Big 12 and the SEC are better conferences. And when you're playing in a better conference, that usually means that you don't need to have a better non-conference schedule because your tough games are going to come from the conference itself. But at the same time, I think the ACC is going to be better next season in terms of where these teams are ranked, right? You're still going to play Duke. You're still going to play Carolina. Miami should be better than they were last year. So overall, you got your good mix, right? You got your teams that are a great opportunity to pick up signature wins, boost your tournament resume before even conference play even starts. Now it's time to add in the teams that, yep, they should beat. What I like to call a circle win. They're playing this team, that should be a win. They're playing that team, it should be a win. That's what Syracuse needs to do going forward when they fill out the rest of their non-conference schedule. Now, coming up, I'm going to give you guys my overall thoughts on the non-conference schedule for next season. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. And the Boston Celtics are up 3-1 in the series against the Dallas Mavericks right now. Boston, last I checked, is minus 3,500 to win the Finals at this point. If you still believe in Dallas and being the first team ever in NBA history to come back from a 3-0 deficit, it's 3-1 now, right? If you believe that they can actually come back and do it, well, their odds are at plus 1,400. It's probably going to be the Celtics, though, and I believe they will close them out on Monday. But hey, if you believe in the Mavericks, plus 1,400, you can take it, right? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's show, we're going over Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule for next season. Once again, I will give you guys the list. They are going to play Albany, but the date hasn't been announced yet. They're playing Colgate on November 12th. From November 21st to the 22nd, they are playing in the Legends Classic, which is at the Barclays Center, and they will be playing two of Texas, Texas Tech, and St. Joseph's. November 27th, they're playing Cornell at home. December 3rd, in the ACC SEC Challenge, they are at Tennessee, a brutal draw for Syracuse this year. Much tougher than it was last year when they got LSU at home, one of the doormats of the SEC. In basketball, at least, they're pretty good in football. December 14th, they got Georgetown at home this year. They still suck. December 21st, Maryland neutral site, also in the Barclays Center. That's what we know for now, but they still need to add a few more games into the non-conference schedule for next season. We talked about how it's a great opportunity for the Orange next year to pick up some signature wins, and now it's time to add in the Cupcakes to their schedule. Let's go over the overall takeaways from Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule for next season. And what are your thoughts on it? Please leave a comment below. Your thoughts on Syracuse's non-conference schedule. Is it too difficult? Is it too easy? Or is it just right? Now, I believe it's pretty much similar to last year. I think the perception is that it's actually easier than last year, but I don't know if it's really easier than last year. I think it's about where it is. Right? Last year, they had to play against Tennessee, of course. That was neutral site. And maybe you can argue that Tennessee was better last year than they're going to be this year because they lost a couple of guys, right? They still added, but they could be a little bit worse. At the same time, you're on the road now, not neutral site. You had to play Gonzaga last year. You also had to play Oregon, although they caught Oregon at a good time. Oregon was banged up when they played them, and that was a neutral site game. So there's that for you. But I believe it's pretty similar. You got Tennessee on the road, obviously. Texas and or Texas Tech are going to be challenging. I think it'll be a similar challenge to what it was like playing against Gonzaga. To be completely honest, you're going to get a team ranked in that range. That's what I would be expecting from them. And then you can argue Maryland and Oregon are about the same, right? Maryland, Oregon, about the same in terms of your third opponent. That's what I would say there. And Georgetown, they still suck, is going to be a little bit better. They added in a guy like Malik Mack. I think everyone wanted him from Syracuse perspective, so should be a little better. What are the keys? The keys to this schedule, you don't have to win at Tennessee, but like I mentioned, don't lose by 20 points. Don't get embarrassed on the road. Please don't. It's kind of like when Syracuse had to play at Illinois back when the ACC used to play the Big Ten. They went at Illinois a couple years ago. They were a young team playing against a top 15 team in the country and got annihilated. The final score of that game, if I remember off the top of my head correctly, was 73-44 at Illinois. You can't have that. You can't. And I know last year they kept it close, but like I said, it doesn't matter that you kept it close when you lost by 17 points in the end. Keep it close. You don't have to win, but if Syracuse can walk away from Tennessee with maybe an overtime loss, maybe a 3-point loss, 5-point loss, even just within 10, that is respectable. Totally respectable. Although I would prefer a win. I think we'd all prefer they actually beat Tennessee outright, right? And then you got to take two of Texas, Texas Tech, Maryland, and Georgetown. I think you should be able to just beat Georgetown at home. Maryland seems like a swing game, could go either way. Texas and Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is probably the tougher one of those games. But still, you can take two of those, including a win against Georgetown. Pretty good. No, I don't think there's much complaints from there if you can take two. That's my thought. 3-1, great, but 2-2, more than fine in my mind with those games. Then the next key is to beat everyone else you play. And not just beating them. See, winning isn't enough. They say that style points don't matter in sports. And if this were pro sports, I would say that is correct. Style points don't matter. But in college basketball, style points matter. You can't win by 5 against Colgate. You can't barely beat Canisius. I think last year they didn't barely beat them, but you can't only win by 10. You can't beat New Hampshire by only, 12 points or something like that. Point is, the other games that they're playing, they have to crush them. Put them in the ground. The reasoning for that is, once again, the net is not a perfect system. But there has to be a way to separate teams that are on the bubble, because there are a lot of teams in the Power 5 that have between 19 and 21 wins. And Syracuse was right in that range last season. There are a lot of teams that deserve to get into the tournament by the time we get into March. And there's only so many spots. There's only so many of them. So teams are inevitably going to feel left out. What do they do? Because of how schedules can be similar and wins can be similar and losses can be similar, records are close, they look at style points. How did you do against this team? Well, that team beat them by 30 and the other one beat them by 10. Which team are you going to take? Not saying it's right or wrong, but that's how it is. So the key is you beat everyone else that you're supposed to beat, and you don't just beat them, you annihilate them. Beat Colgate by 20 points this time. If you schedule a game against Bryant, it better not go to overtime. You better not only win by 1 point, or heaven forbid you lose that game. You crush those teams, you should be in fine shape. It'll help your net if you crush them. It's kind of like, remember when this is a conference game, but if you recall, when they beat Louisville at the end of last season on the road, a road conference win dropped Syracuse in the net because they lost by they won by a close margin. They won by 6, I think. But regardless, in that Louisville game, Syracuse had I want to say a 15-point lead in the second half, but because Louisville ended up closing the deficit in the end, it hurt Syracuse that they actually won the game. Now, if they had outright lost to Louisville, it would have hurt them tremendously more. But still, a close win against Louisville didn't matter last year. Who cares? And by the way, Louisville is another one of those teams I think is going to be much better this season than they've been the past few years. So you got to crush the teams that you are supposed to beat. Those are my main keys for the non-conference schedule for this season. I think it's a great opportunity. I think they now need to add in some cupcakes. If you can go 2-2 against Tennessee, Georgetown, Texas/Texas Tech, and Maryland, I think you're in good shape. And then if you can crush the teams that you are supposed to crush, they should be fine heading into conference play. So leave your overall thoughts in the comments below, what you think of Syracuse basketball's non-conference schedule for next season. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you know right away when I'm dropping the next podcast. And for tomorrow, what I have planned is we're going to go over the conference schedule and the overall takeaways I have from that. So stay tuned, and everyone, have a great rest of your day.